In this session we will learn about axis operations in Scilab. We will learn about important functions, which are used to operate on the axis of the figure, and also explore few important properties of the axis entity. For plotting 2D or 3D data, we need to set the required properties of the graphics area in the figure, called as axis. Here, we explore some high-level functions to work with axis. To do any modification in the axis, we need the handle of the axis using GCA or SCA function. We can change any property of the axis with this handle. SCA function is used to set the axis handle as current axis and then issue plot commands. The active axis in the figure will receive the plotting commands. GCE function is used when we want the handle of the last drawn graphics entity in the axis. We can obtain handle of any graphics entities like polylines, labels, surfaces and more. Let's look at an example on how to use GCE function. In this script, we first plot some 2D data and then using GCE function, we get the handle of the polyline graphics entity. Before we access the polyline object from the graphics handle, we check that the handle is a graphics handle using the type function. Then using the polyline handle, we modify the thickness, marker style, and size of the polyline. First we run the script before modifying the polyline, then we run the script again, to modify the polyline and see how GCE function is used. Axis function is used to create new axes in the same figure. In this script, we create two axes in same figure using the axis function. Axes A1 and A2 are the handles created by axis function. Using the axis bounds property, we set the width and height of both the axes to occupy half of the figure height. Now to plot data in the axis, we use SCA function to activate and make the A1 axis current, and then A2 axis current. Now in the figure, we see both the axes placed in same figure. Using subplot command, we can arrange set of axes in a grid format similar to an M by N matrix. Subplot function divides the figure into M rows and N columns, and we specify the position where we want to plot the axes in the grid. Here in the subplot function, the argument 211 is 2 rows, 1 column, and first position, in which the axes will be placed for plotting. Likewise, in the second subplot function, 212 is 2 rows, 1 column, second position. In the earlier example of axes, we saw how to create additional axes in the same figure very much similar to subplots. We can see that subplots function makes it very easy to add additional axes to the figure. After getting the handle of the axis, we can modify its properties. Axis object has many properties, out of which here we list a few important properties, which are required to be set before or after plotting the data. Using the axis handle, we can set the location of the X and Y axis. We can modify the label properties of title, axis labels and their fonts. We can find complete list of all the properties in the axis properties page in Scilab help. Here, we see how different properties of the axis are modified using the axis handle. After plotting data, we get the handle of the axis using the GCA function. From the axis handle, we modify the text property of the X and Y label object of the axis. We also specify the location of the axis using the location property. So in this session, we learned how to modify the axis using various functions and axis handle.